What scientific breakthrough are we closer to than most people realize? Growing back your own enamel instead of needing crown/replacements. Vaccines for herpes and Lyme's disease are in deep successful clinical trials and should be available to the public very soon. They're hoping that a new drug will be available for use by 2030 that essentially grows your teeth back. It stimulates stem cells in your tooth pulp and encourages growth. Also, to my understanding, this drug was originally being tested as an Alzheimer treatment in Japan. Geothermal energy. People have figured out how to reuse all the drilling technology developed for fracking to dig geothermal wells almost anywhere. Geothermal has the benefits of nuclear, reliable baseband power, without the downsides. The footprint is smaller, and unlike nuclear power, you can turn it on and off pretty quickly, which is important for filling the gaps in green energy when the sun doesn't shine or the wind stops blowing. The US government just cleared out almost all the red tape for digging geothermal wells on public land too. Basically, it is now as easy to dig a geothermal well as it is to dig an oil well. They are even looking at using geothermal wells like batteries by pumping water into them and pressurizing them. So when there is an excess of solar or wind electricity, it can be stored in the geothermal wells. A cure for symptomatic rabies. Using monoclonal antibodies, scientists were able to alter the immune response in rats' CNS significantly into infection. This is awesome because before this treatment, once you showed symptoms you were essentially dead. Rabies is also a lot more common in Asia and Africa, with roughly 56,000 cases a year. Insanely effective cancer treatments. Cell therapy is absolutely crazy, and it's available for a fair few diseases. A cure for HIV seems to be on the horizon. Some scientists managed to cut it out of cells using CRISPR last year. Early diagnosis and treatment of Parkinson's, I think. I've been following a story for a few years now of a woman who could smell Parkinson's and is now working with researchers to turn her weird unique ability into an early screening test. Growing transplantable organs. Genetic editing. I think we'll soon see news of experimental gene therapy treatments for cancer, diabetes and, perhaps, Alzheimer's. CRISPR9 and all. The next logical step would be designer babies. Brain-computer interface. I worked on one 10 years ago. It barely worked, but you could see the potential. However, a few weeks ago someone played a 6-hour Civilization 6 session using only their brain. Synthetic biology. Shit's going to get weird real soon. A technological leap forward in battery storage capacity, cheaper and lighter weight. This will have the biggest impact on everyday life. This is rather an engineering issue, but a lot of scientists are working on this as well. RGB micro-OLED displays. We can currently build fairly efficient blue and green micro-LEDs from indium gallium nitride, but the red ones are missing. Red LEDs have been available for much longer than their blue counterparts, but we currently cannot make them small enough for a high-speed display. Many researchers and companies are trying to get the red ones working with several different approaches, and I believe we will see the first commercial applications, starting from smartwatches, smartphones and AR/VR goggles within the next 5 years. Understanding how hormones and mental illness are linked, especially in women who previously were diagnosed with mental illness but who had endocrine disorders. And to add, menopause. In response to the Lancet's awful claim of over-medicalization, scores of researchers the world over have doubled down to learn more. Checked the top posts for hair loss treatments and there was nothing mentioned. Going to go cry now. Curing addiction with a diet drug GLP-1s. There have been lifelong alcoholics, drug addicts, people with eating disorders, gamblers, etc. who've lost all desire for these things while on Ozempic, Wegovy, and semaglutide. They're conducting studies already. Large-scale water desalinization. It may seem trivial to most people, but access to fresh water and water purification are the largest problems on the planet. Desalinization has been extremely expensive for years and never has the investment needed to break the scalability barrier. Well, our friends in the Middle East claim to have made some huge accomplishments over the last few years thanks to graphene and access to abundant power. Their new plants should be coming online next year. Not having to worry about access to clean water would mean massive jumps in agriculture, industrialization and population. To not be able to trust any digital images, videos, or audio you see anywhere. Politics are going to go straight into a dumpster fire among countless other scandals, relationships, and virtually everything. Get ready. Just a few days ago, quantum data was stored and transmitted for the first time, so that's pretty exciting. The breakthrough happened tilde cleaning the oceans of garbage. Now it needs to be more than a ship or two. Believe it or not, communicating with animals by translating brain waves into human language. Apparently AI research is on the verge of doing so. mRNA-based cancer treatment. Within a decade it will render chemoradiation obsolete. Artificial wombs. Already have biobag wombs used on premature sheep and pigs. Soon to go to human trial for premature babies in the USA. Probes eventually will be able to support a fetus earlier and earlier in gestation over time. An antidote that immediately reverses the effects of marijuana intoxication. It works similar to the way naloxone works to reverse opiate intoxication. It is already developed and currently in clinical trials. Drugs that slow or even reverse the aging process. I want my telomeres back. Psychedelics as a treatment for mental illness. We are going to improve our ability to actually help people instead of offering them meds and crossing our fingers. I don't think anyone thinks about cystic fibrosis, but from the 3 years I went from learning about it in medical school to seeing the treatment in residency, people live legitimately normal lives with a disease that had an average lifespan in the 20s only years ago. It brings tears to my eyes and hope for what we can do going forward for a disease that was an early death sentence mere years ago. Genetically modified humans. To test if the nuclear winter hypothesis is really accurate. I personally am very excited for telemetry sensors/trackers being small enough to track bees and other pollinators. I'm stoked for it to become more affordable. People ought to keep in mind that scientific breakthroughs are not social breakthroughs. There is currently really no reason why anyone should die in the developed world of colon cancer. But it is one of the deadliest forms of cancer. It is easy to spot and easy to treat compared to most cancers. We just don't support people the way they need to get them tested and treated. That's it. That's the story. There are probably a few dozen diseases just like that around the world. We have the tech. We just don't care enough.